Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and with the full-scale invasion of Ukraine now underway, I'd like to discuss the reaction in the UK and whether or not our government will be forced to take strong action, because goodness knows they're not going to elect to do so unilaterally. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So I'm actually going to start slightly different to what I'd planned to start with. Tom Tugendhat's worth mentioning this, a Conservative MP, therefore a Brexit supporting MP, who's been on the radio this morning apparently to point out that with Brexit, one of the big promises of Brexit, of leaving the EU, is we'd be able to apply our own sanctions in our own international interest. And he's now saying to the government, so why aren't we? You said we could do this if we left the EU. Why are we not doing it? Because the EU right now are applying sanctions to people, not just with links to Putin, very close to Putin, his chief of staff, generals and so on, big names. We've sanctioned 3 people that even Putin hasn't heard of. Yes, there's going to be an announcement. And that's what I will say, though. There is going to be a statement from Boris Johnson in Parliament later today. When you're watching this, he may have made it, I don't know, on further sanctions. But I'll be honest, unless he is forced to take genuine action, real action, they will be weak. His announcement of sanctions earlier this week was pathetic. I felt the need to respond to a tweet from Dan Hodges of the Daily Mail yesterday. He said that it's incredible that, having initially taken the lead in the crisis, the Prime Minister was being overtaken by everyone else in terms of action. And my response was, Johnson was never leading. He said he was. He said he was, but he wasn't. Actions speak louder than words. The UK was not involved in any bilateral attempts to prevent this escalation at all. Whenever we heard of diplomatic initiatives which involved multiple governments, the UK was never mentioned as being part of them. We were not involved in them. Liz Truss went around for a photo shoot in Moscow, that was it. Johnson just talked a good fight in order to distract from the fact he intended to do nothing. Do you know what it's like? I've seen this before, some of you may have done as well. It's like when you're in a work meeting and the boss comes in and announces a stupid bloody idea. You know, and at the time I would have said, that's a stupid bloody idea. After which they would keep a careful eye on me to make sure I was implementing their stupid bloody idea. Wiser colleagues would say, oh, what a great idea, boss. Oh, yeah, I'll get onto that right away. Then they would promptly ignore the stupid bloody idea in the knowledge that nobody would feel the need to check up on them because they were so enthusiastic about it. It's the same thing here. He wants the public to think he's taking strong action because his rhetoric was so clear and powerful. It's obscene. But before I get on to what pressure might come to bear on Johnson, a few other things to consider. First, I keep seeing people point out, but Britain's invaded sovereign countries in the past. Yes, and that's why we should take strong action here. That long dead people who commanded our nation were as bad does not mean we allow modern day megalomaniacs to do the same in perpetuity, does it? It actually means we should be taking the lead. We should be more robust in acting against this sort of thing to demonstrate that as a society we have changed. But above all, in determining what action we should take, obviously we need to primarily consider what Ukraine wants from us. I've seen no end of people saying, oh, we should do this, we should do that, we should do the other. Have you actually asked Ukraine what they need? You remember, we promised to protect them in return for them surrendering their nuclear weapons after the collapse of the Soviet Union. You know, we have an obligation beyond mere morality and self-interest, because it is in our interest that no part of Europe falls into the hands of dictatorships and certainly isn't engulfed in war. Nothing that is happening now is any different to what happened in Europe in 1938. It's just in a slightly different place. So what is Ukraine actually asking for? So Ukraine's Minister of Foreign Affairs has asked for 5 things. First, devastating sanctions on Russia and immediately. Now, when we say Russia, in terms of what would be reasonable, certainly Putin. And it's one of these things in terms of if you want a peaceful resolution to something, there is only one way. And that is, in this case, to crush Putin financially. But in general, if you want to avoid military solutions, you use economic solutions. Those are the 2 sticks or carrots, however you put it. You ideally don't want to inflict sanctions that hurt the Russian people if you can avoid it. And in some cases, sometimes it's very difficult to avoid it. In this case, it's very straightforward. Putin is a kleptocrat. He's nicked Russia's wealth and he's squirreled it away in places. Well, those places are in our countries. So we've got the ability to say, you can't access those nuts anymore. Not until you behave yourself, Putin. Appeasement is not peaceful because we are abandoning those who will fight for their freedom to death. And appeasement only leads to more land grabs until we do eventually fight back in force, at which point a long and protracted war cannot be averted. So appeasement is actually the most anti-peaceful thing you can do. We know this from history. It's not conjecture. Second, Ukraine want Russia to be fully isolated by all means in all formats. I mean, obviously, we're not going to blockade their ports or anything. In addition, I'm no expert, but I can't imagine isolating it from global banking networks or anything like that is going to work either. That would hurt the whole world very badly. Besides, it's not necessary. There are forms of isolation we can and should take. For example, it had been pointed out some days ago for someone else how Russia should not be attending or hosting any international sporting events. That they were allowed, for example, to host the Football World Cup whilst having occupied Ukraine already was abhorrent. You know, there was a bad take today from a UEFA. It was actually UEFA Europa League saying, "Happy Thursday, everyone." And someone was pointing out, this is a very badly mistimed tweet. UEFA Champions League, they actually got this slightly wrong. It's the UEFA Champions League is being hosted in Russia this year. Why? And why on the day that Russia, a member of UEFA, has invaded another member of UEFA, are they saying happy Thursday to everyone? Does it sound like a happy Thursday? You know, we can socially isolate Russia in a way that wouldn't cause hardship for the people of Russia. Third, weapons and equipment for Ukraine, obvious one. And note that is not calling for military assistance. Nobody is calling for military assistance here. Nobody is calling for NATO to get involved militarily. Nobody. You know, as with all such crises, there are people who will overblow it a little bit and talk about, what if NATO did this? Nobody's talking about NATO attacking Russian forces, even those that are actually inside Ukraine. Not even the Ukrainian government are calling for that. And then 4 and 5 were financial and humanitarian assistance, respectively. Again, least we can do. We only got to this point because Western leaders failed to take action when it would have been quicker, easier, and cheaper to do so. So now we're waiting to see what action is taken by the United States, the EU and the UK. As I've said, we've already seen a list of names, extra names being sanctioned by the EU now, which includes those immediately around Putin, very, very close to him, his generals, his oligarchs, the ones immediately around him, and members of his government. It may well be that none of these groups does everything that they can, but we will see. But the weakest link, of course, is the UK, because our government is in the thrall of Putin's network. It'd be very much like if the US was still in Trump's hands, you know, but it's not. But the UK sort of is. I've seen a lot of people talking about the Conservatives' reticence as being explained by the adage, you don't bite the hand that feeds you, based on the notion that the Conservatives received a lot of donations since they came to power from those with close links to Putin. It has been a very obvious attempt by Putin to influence British politics. But I think the motivation to do nothing may go beyond the promise of more money to come. It might well be that most Conservative MPs would be happy not to receive any more Kremlin-linked donations. It may even be, and I'll wait to see on this one, it may be that the public attitude is very much against this. I do notice that the normally Tory-supporting newspapers are not exactly backing Russia on this. Nor are they blaming the EU for this really either, because that's another old dodge. It's like, oh yeah, it's the EU's fault that Russia invaded Ukraine. Right. It's potentially more that the Conservatives don't want to appear to be turning on their donors when, you know, the political heat gets too high for them. But that is the Conservative Party. We know that the Conservative Party, all the way through Theresa May, David Cameron, are thoroughly implicated in this. You know, David Cameron personally accepted a load of donations for his own constituency, for example. Theresa May told the security services not to look for evidence of Russian interference. The whole party is implicated here. You know, they are reluctant to take strong action and are using all sorts of spurious arguments that, it would hurt. There's no point in doing anything that hurts us more than it hurts Putin. The idea that they won't take action to stop a war in Europe because it would harm our economy is false for a couple of reasons. First of all, they've absolutely beasted our economy with Brexit. Beasted it. Divesting our country of Putin's assets would be tame in comparison. Second of all, this conflict's going to harm our economy come what may. It's all right saying, oh yeah, but if you do this, it hurts us in this way. Okay, it's hurting us anyway. It's already hurt us. It's going to carry on hurting us. You cannot have war on your continent without it affecting trade very badly. Again, this is the Brexit mindset that you like trade is like Lego. It's not, but no, it's all connected. You can't just remove a piece without affecting the rest of it. You know, not only is the value of trade with Ukraine enough to cause issues, but what we import are important resources, cereals, iron. That's going to be noticed if supplies are disrupted, which of course during the war is going to be. You know, and of course it will expand further if we don't do something now. I said that Brexit was like giving up your job to save on the petrol. Not adopting strong sanctions against Putin is like refusing to pay for fire extinguishers to protect your gallery of alcohol-infused paper works of art. But we've also a particular problem of our Prime Minister. Beyond the Conservative Party, that we'd still have problems no matter who was in charge, our specific Prime Minister. I've already explained earlier this week how he is possibly personally compromised. A man who gives his security the slip to get drunk in the company of Putin's allies may well find himself with incriminating materials used against him if he takes a stand against them. He is potentially a target of blackmail. You know, I think we may need Johnson to be forced to take action. I don't mean compelled. I don't mean put under a lot of pressure. I mean forced. Who will do it? I've little faith his party will. Yes, sure, they'll stand up again in Parliament today and condemn Putin's actions and complain that the Prime Minister's announcement is too weak again. But will they actually do anything? Some will. I mean, some have already put in their letters. That's all they can do, threaten his position. Say, if you don't do something, you're gone. Some have already done so. Most are not doing. So I don't think most will do. Can enough pressure be brought to bear by the EU or the US? Do they even care enough to do so? Like, the US is mostly concerned with Asia. Yes, they do seem to be taking this situation very seriously, but Asia is their prime concern rather than Europe these days. Would they really be so determined to stop this that they impose sanctions on the UK for facilitating Putin's money laundering as part of a wider package of measures? I don't think so. I'm not sure. Maybe the question is, can the EU and the US combine do enough harm to Putin to force him back without the UK being helpful? Certainly Putin does not believe that they can or will, or he would not be taking this action. But we know from history that Putin will eventually bite off more than he can chew. In modern history, dictators may wreak devastation, but they do not last when they invade their neighbours. We seem fine letting them brutalise their own population, but not elsewhere. The only question is, how long will we deny the inevitable course of many times repeated history before we realise that the same path always leads to the same destination, and the further down that path you go, the more damage is caused? But those are my thoughts for now. I don't anticipate in talking about this topic very frequently, even though it is, of course, the most important thing going on right now in Europe. My understanding of some aspects is limited. I know that doesn't stop everyone shooting their mouths off, but this isn't GB News. But those are the things I'd like to discuss today anyway. This is war in Europe after all. But for now, those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button if you'd like to support the channel further. Please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.